Welcome, welcome
Welcome,
to the
everyone.
what is it? The launch of our
The
first.
lunch.
Yeah, I guess it's a video podcast. I don't know if we're gonna do this. We're gonna actually have it be audio, but I figure well, at least with video, you get two talking heads, and you get to see that we have matching matching sweaters unintentionally.
And that
Um,
we're real. We're real.
that's right. So my name is Corey,
And I'm Sam.
and this is the work. This is called Polytopics. And you'll obviously see how that's spelled. It's spelled a little differently, but we're going to be discussing topics about polyamory, relationships, family, that sort of thing. Um, and a lot of this stuff should be able to apply just to anybody. But Sam and I typically have these long, deep conversations, reflective and whatever. And we've been doing this for how many years now? Just personally, how many
Oh,
years have we been doing
geez.
this?
At least 3, 4. Oh,
So
man.
since probably well, we met in 2017, I think, or 2016.
It was
I think
16 or 17.
yeah, through a Facebook group of all things.
Yeah. A poly
Yeah,
Facebook group,
yeah,
that is.
that was all about selfies. Yeah, and you direct messaged me, which is actually I just realized that's against the group rules.
Oh, because I didn't
I
ask
think
her.
so. No,
Mhm.
you didn't ask my consent, but nowadays people tend to ask consent in these groups and say, "Hey, can I message you?" Whatever. Because a lot of people, if you don't have that rule, they just totally will like message you, and you get unsolicited, what like schlong pics and whatever, or crazy people. It's like I don't know you. Go away.
Or scammers. I've got some scammers.
Oh, scammers. Oh yeah, the scammers. Yeah, those
Yeah.
are fun. So yeah, so we've known each other for a few years. We've had a couple of visits together. We're in two different countries. I'm in Canada. Sam's in the U.S. And I've flown to visit you, and then I took my family, and we came to visit. And it's sort of like we've become kind of like family because it's such a
Yes,
good
we are.
mesh. That's right. So, but we've been talking about wanting to do a podcast since we first started talking. I think
Yes.
within
Yeah,
just like
literally.
maybe maybe a few months, and you were like, we should do this, and I'm like, okay. I think we talked about it on a trip. I was on a phone call. I was driving back from a convention. We had a long chat on the phone. We were talking about this, but we just haven't gotten around to do it. Life's been a little crazy, um, as it always tends to be. Life circumstances, new family members, um, you know, that sort of thing. Lots of stuff going on.
We
So
finally decided to make the time. Make
mhm,
that time.
yeah, and not try to stress about trying to get it right. Just do it.
Just do it. Just do the thing. We are probably going to mess up. We are probably going to say wrong things at times, but you know what? We'll be authentic and we will apologize when we feel like we need to. And we never mean to offend anybody
Yeah.
ever.
So, yeah, disclaimer. Um, we we won't go out our way to offend somebody, but if you're offended, I'm sorry that you're offended. but we tend to be pretty um, kind. We tend to use kind words and try to speak
Yeah,
mindfully and stuff. So I think we'll have a good time.
I think so too.
I have to tell you, I totally love the yellow background, and then there's
Do
me
you
with
like it? It's
my
kind of, yeah,
dungeon,
your darkness. Yeah,
my
your dungeon.
darkness dungeon. I have like a lamp behind my monitor, and I have three screens all like basking in the light.
Glowing on you.
That's right. Where's the fan? I need a fan. My wind can. Well, and you've got the little strands of hair that definitely could blow in the wind.
Yeah, yeah. I should turn up my fan and maybe that will happen. I'll get
Well,
the
we got
wind.
the we've got that funny little background music too. So, but at least that sort of fills in any of that
Yeah.
awkward silence. But, so yeah, so we decided to do this, and now we're actually doing it, and we're using a tool called StreamYard. You can see by the logo. There we go. See, there we go. The logo. We're gonna pay for it eventually. We're just trying this out, but it'll improve over time. Um, we're going to talk today about relationships and partnerships, because it's been an interesting topic that we've been both thinking about since, I'd say, it's summer.
Yeah,
Um,
very much so.
and it started for me some interesting, in an interesting place, but we'll get to that after. Um, but yeah, the whole notion of partnerships and relationships and how they are different in general, and in poly, there you can, because you can have more than one connection with people. Usually, you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to connect with more than one person. Usually, if that's your thing, that would make you polyamorous. And if you only wanted to connect with one person, that would make you monogamous, at least in practice. Um, but regardless of your relationship orientation style, I guess, is that what it is? Relationship
I would say
orientation.
I would call it that. Yeah,
So
for sure.
regardless of that, those distinctions are important. And yeah, we tend, I think, I don't know if you'd agree this, but people tend to, I know I certainly did for many years, conflated relationship and partnership together. Though I knew there was maybe something a little different, but I didn't really think about it.
I agree. I felt the same too. They were just labeled as the same. And I now feel different once you like brought actually, Corey, you brought that up to me. You made me think, what? But and actually I felt like so Corey shared an article and I was like, well, what do you mean there's a difference? And the article was really good. And I was like, oh, and then something clicked. And then I really enjoyed um, understanding the difference. And I feel like it's helping me navigate my poly life right now into a more balanced understanding in the relationships I have and the partnership I have.
Yeah, it's kind of revealing once you start thinking about the distinction between the two. But
Mm.
so in my mind, I think for the people watching this, we should probably talk about the
Yeah.
differences between them and what they mean. Um, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the article that started it all, and it's the it actually has a really interesting title. So just give me a second while I get my screen share set up for that. Um, I'm still learning how to navigate all this stuff. Where is that? Here we go. I'm going to share this. Okay, and there we go. Um, let's see. Can we do this? No, I'll do this. We're like whipping around. Yeah, I saw it on Medium, and I'm going to zoom it a little bit. Um, so I really I thought the title was kind of misleading, at least the first part. I think the byline, the difference between partnership and relationship, was really good. Um, one of the things that um, this was really important of finding out the difference. Um, I find the relationship piece leaves a lot of the um, it can really sort of focus on friendship or romance or a sexual connection. Um, the partnership stuff is all the other things that are practical in your life. When you pair up with somebody, you're getting a house, maybe raising kids, you're working to save for retirement, you're going on vacations together, you're trying to figure out what to eat for supper. Um, those are sort of partnershipy type things. Um, and I find that relationships are more about the feelings, and partnerships are, I don't know, I'm going to choose the words, probably not the best word, but it's more about the function of how two people are working together. So I don't know. Do you agree with that, or do you have some additional perspective?
I do agree with that. Definitely. I feel like, what did I read? What was it? Relationships are about seeking pleasure, and partnerships are about seeking purpose. Um,
Mhm.
Not saying that you can't have pleasure and purpose, um, but it's more geared towards a purpose, a common goal as far as partnership, um, something shared, versus a relationship is about, um, uh, I think, more of the fun stuff, the things that you don't have to necessarily have. Yeah.
Sorry, am I distracting you?
No, I
I,
was just trying to think of a good word,
sorry.
and the word wasn't coming. Um,
Yeah,
there's
there's
another
a spot when we were looking at that we did a little bit of research because we've been talking about this for a long time, but
word.
there's other people talking about this too, and this isn't necessarily most of this isn't through the lens of polyamory, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like I find that in my experience, relationships tend to be more about the pleasurable side of things and one aspect or another. And partnerships are work and
Mhm.
finding out how to make things, I don't know, um, connect, manifest, other than these feelings.
So
Um,
then what would you, for you particularly, what would you feel, are things in a partnership or could be in a partnership that makes it a partnership, not a relationship?
well, I think I probably mentioned some examples, but certainly, well, in my experience, one really easy one because I have them. I have kids. I'm married, and I have children. Children are a an aspect of in a connection with somebody where you're going to be in a partnership because you have to agree on how to raise these children and take care of them and meet their needs and do all that stuff, and that's really important. You have to figure out how to, in a partnership, how do you coexist together? How do you manage your day to day? How do you decide how to buy a car? um, how do you decide, how do you figure out when to say, okay, stop spending money, we need to save? Or um, when do we go want to go on a vacation? Those sorts of things. So those are how I would see some things. That's what I know that I'm more of a partnership rather than just a relationship. Now, relationships and partnerships can coexist with the same person. You can have the feelings and you can do that all the other stuff, but certainly I think in our society, especially in Western culture, maybe Eastern culture too, but Western for sure, the partnerships tend to overshadow the relationships as the partnerships get longer. As you,
Okay.
like, at least as far as how like people like turn, like you hear about situations where people turn into roommates, like they're married and they have children or whatever, but they really feel like roommates and they're not really connecting and they're not really doing things together. They're not really having quality time. They have more quantity time, right? And um, both are good at some levels, but to maintain the relationship aspect, you really need that quality time because you need that intimacy and that connection, right? To
Yeah.
make some of that work.
So you're saying that, like, sometimes there can be this a romantic intimacy as far as partnership
No, I think
times,
your audio's
or
glitching out.
Mhm.
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that sentence? Your
Sure.
audio glitched out.
Sorry. So with that, are you saying that sometimes, like, the romantic intimacy in a partnership may be challenged or may, um, kind of have dead spots versus in a relationship where you don't have these possibly stressors of finances,
Mhm.
house dwellings, children, or things along those lines where it could, allow for the romantic intimacy to flourish easier?
Mhm. I think Yeah, I think there's that. I think well, you've heard of the term the relationship. What is it? The elevator or the escalator? The escalator. I think
The
the escalator.
escalator. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this sort of fits into that, into this, these concepts where we start off, right? We meet somebody and you're going up the escalator, going up and up, and the escalator is bringing you up to newer levels. So um, maybe then you start to, well, you start dating, and then you start sleeping over, and then you start thinking about how you're going to spend the weekend or go on a holiday together, and then maybe you decide, well, we want to move in, and then, oh,
It turns into
do we
partnership.
want to do we want to, or do we want to get married, right? And so these things, it goes from this relationship, which is really easy, to set up if the people are compatible. If the people aren't compatible,
Yeah.
the relationship will fall apart. And usually that's how it goes. Either they relate, or people are expecting one thing and looking for another. Um, that has certainly happened to me. They think they want one thing, yet it turns out they actually want the other. So they think they want the relationship, and then it turns out I'm just so damn good. No, no, I'm kidding. No, that they find that they want more, right? And
Yeah.
so, and that I think happens in any monogamous or polyamorous relationship where, if I think with poly, it tends to there tends to be more of an awareness of these factors because we've had to live them
Mhm.
and experience them with other partners at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Um, so along the lines of the escalator, would you say that a partnership is more committed um, in an escalator, or how would you define the difference
Well,
with
it's
the
what
two?
once you start getting into practical senses and you're there, you're looking at some level of permanence. It's like I've always I've always thought about, like, in the poly community, we talk about no relationships are ever forever. So at some point, the relationship's going to end, even if that means one person has to like pass away because they're old or
Right.
whatever. Or but a lot of relationships have different shelf lives. Um, where is it going with this? Um, I think I'm blanking out. Damn it. That's okay. Um, the How do you know when you're transitioning to that? I think once you start making um, making a concerted effort to talk about these things that would make things more solidified. Um, relate Partnerships, I think, are more, yeah, definitely more permanent than a relationship. So there are a lot of people that can have relationships that just last a long time. But I was going to use the metaphor of the sticky note. I don't know if you've heard this before.
I'm not for sure.
So um, the idea of a sticky note that is that it's temporarily permanent. It's not
Okay,
coming off unless you take it off, right? It doesn't come
that's
off.
you.
If it's
Yeah.
stuck to something, it's stuck to something. Um, but it's not like you can't take it off. So I kind of view um, relationships kind of like that. I think with
Okay.
partnerships, it,
Yeah.
the sticky note becomes more sticky, and it becomes harder to remove.
So it's got some super glue to it.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, there's some pain. You're gonna do damage once you start, and I think maybe that's like, you can have emotional damage with a relationship, but there's far more things at stake when you have a partnership, right? Because
Yeah.
if things
Yeah.
change, that really does. It could be like a stick of dynamite in your lap. Um, with relationships, I think you can you can it can be really painful too. I've been through that, but
Yeah.
there's a lot less at stake, I think. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think there's less at stake with a relationship than there's a partnership, or what's your take on all that?
So I feel like a partnership is serious agreements made between people.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay. Yeah.
like we are going to agree on these to share or with each other or for each other in the relationship that we have. So, whether that be the finances, the children, big life decisions making together. You make that commitment together and that you desire to do that both ends. So that agreement um, versus a relationship. Not that you can't have agreements in a relationship, but it's nothing solidly committed. You're not sharing your name on any legal documents,
Hmm.
perhaps. You are not deciding to raise children together. You may be in children's lives. You may be present, your um, boyfriend or girlfriend or person or love interest may have a child and you may, do the things with them, but it's not that commitment made together. It's not an active choice to make that commitment together.
Hmm.
Um, and so I feel that relationships can have this like almost freedom in a way
Hmm.
to kind of live maybe even more authentically without as many boundaries.
Hmm.
Um, because it's more of a free will, right? And that's also kind of like part of the like when you first meet someone and you decide you're interested in this person, like you're like all over them, right? Like,
Yeah.
usually,
Yeah.
like your carnal desires are like, "Arr." um, but
If
then
that's your thing.
if that's your thing,
Right.
yes, that's
Yeah.
and you just can't get enough of that person, and then all of a sudden, like realness happens, right? Then you actually get to know this person, and you might figure out some of those quirks are not what you desire or like anymore, or you may have to adjust a few things. Versus in a partnership, like, um, well, I guess in a relationship, like you can then choose to walk away. But in a partnership, you made that commitment. So then you kind of have to like second question yourself again before just walking away of like, well, okay, I made this commitment. Is this thing that happened or this thing that this person does, is it so much of an annoyance where I should walk away from the commitments made? Or do I sit here, try to communicate more and work towards something more because this is a partnership? And something is shared and I made that commitment to do so. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah.
Well, I'm wondering if this is a good segue into sort of talking because I'm look, you could probably see me thinking. Thinking about what you're saying, and I'm relating to my own experiences. And I think you and I have both had our share of both relationships and partnerships.
Yeah.
Um, um, I think I've been doing poly or ethical non-monogamy for about 10, going on 11 years. So I've had a fair bit of um, runway with some of this. Doesn't mean that I've got it all figured out. And I know you've been doing this for a long time too. Um, but it made me think. Okay, so um, I'll speak about a past relationship. Obviously, we're not giving any names other than our own because it's not good to do that. This is the internet. The internet never forgets, right? Um, but I got involved with a woman, and she had clear ideas about what she wanted in life. She had a very busy life in general, very independent. Um, um, didn't wasn't poly at all. Wasn't having any other relationship. Identified monogamous. Um, and I was not really sure if this is where I wanted to go, but I actually got along with her. So we dated for 8 months, and around about the 6 month mark, I started getting little clues that she was starting to consider, some aspects of a partnership without actually really coming out and saying it. Um, I think I got one time she said something along the lines that she wanted me to stay over more often. like she wanted more time with me. Like, okay, so I have to work that out of my current relationships. And I was, I'm married and I have a family, and the environment here. And then I think I had yeah, no, I think I had another girlfriend as well, somebody else that I had been seeing for quite some time. So trying to balance all that was kind of tricky. Um, but then around 8 month mark is when we ended up breaking up, and it was a very quick turnaround because I think the woman realized that there was more that she wanted than just what we had. And I didn't know the difference between a relationship and a partnership. Really, I wasn't really thinking of that.
Yeah.
I wanted a relationship with her, and I was willing to commit some level of my life to her on an ongoing basis. And I guess in a way that starts that bond of partnership a little bit,
Yeah.
maybe because I'm
Yeah.
willing to commit. But at the same time, she didn't really know that. But I had been really discussing what that might look like with my wife, and how might we want to do that. But then things came to a head where she started really to think, and this was within a week's time from beginning to end. She really started to actively think about wanting more and realizing that she could not get the more that she was looking for. And I think there might have been some other outside pressures that would have given her pause to actually enter into something a bit more unorthodox. Like, for example, like, not that this was decided on, but maybe she could live with us part time,
Yeah.
or I could live with her part time, that kind of thing. Um, so you know, taking the escalator a bit. And so when we broke up, one of the things that she was saying, she wanted the escalator, but she needed to sort herself out too because wasn't sure really what she wanted. So it was interesting. She went from I just want to date, have free, open. I'm not saying whimsical, but like as you were saying, like open-ended experience. And I was willing to offer that to her, um, as part of like what I can do on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We were really close and it really worked out. So breaking up sucked. So there was that heartache, but we didn't have a lot of integration. I think maybe partnerships start to look at the integration factor too.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
I would say yeah.
so the lesson that came out of that was, I came across that article, and I didn't have the language about partnerships and relationships. And then it went click, and I read the article, and I was able to immediately apply to. It took me about a month to get to this point because I was still in denial that we weren't gonna get back together. Um, that happens when you're in love sometimes. but um, but it made me go, oh, she was wanting to go down the partnership. When she said she wanted more, she wanted to explore the partnership side of things. And my life, the way it's set up, really isn't conducive to um, the level of partnership that she was like, looking for. So, so that's one of what's interesting is that about a month, 2 months later, I my other girlfriend and I broke up, not in the same way, but for similar reasons. There was like she needed more, and I was only able to give what I could give, and we've agreed to stay friends, which was good because I enjoy that friendship. But we don't have the romantic ties anymore. So we've managed to maintain some level of, I don't know, not companionship, but like we like each other, we're friendly, we hang out, he visits, that sort of thing. But it was interesting how both of these situations really illuminated one of the one of the things that can happen. Doesn't happen with everybody. There's a lot of polyamorous and monogamous people that pair up, and the monogamous person sort of has to learn how to navigate the poly person's life. um, but that is one of the
Mhm.
potential pitfalls of having those types of relationships in play. It doesn't mean you don't take the risk, right? So anyway,
Oh
I
yeah,
sort of
there's
rambled
always
for a
risk.
bit. You were really really polite and listening. Did you have any thoughts or questions about that, or anything, or did you want to relay some of your own experiences about the different those differences?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that you brought up too, like interesting, like people that have not entered into polyamorous or ethical non-monogamous relationships. It's a transition. A lot of times that mindset of an escalator, like, we get to know each other, we date, we're in a relationship, we are partners, we're this, like all of the things. Um, and sometimes actually talk about want out of the future from a possible partner, right? A
Hmm. Hmm.
possible relationship. The expectations in that, how that will play out. Is this going to be just a relationship or is this a partnership? What can you give to this relationship instead of like just having the relationship? Is this relationship able to go to a partnership? Are we compatible in those aspects? I know that's probably what I've learned from the takeaway from relationships versus partnerships. And then also, when someone is new into the journey of the lifestyle. Um, Go
Hmm.
ahead, sorry.
Well, I was gonna say, so do you mean new to the journey? So like a monogamous person coming in and going, maybe I should try this out, the poly
Yeah.
lifestyle themselves, or they're willing to at least ride, I don't want to say sidecar, but they're going to go along this journey with you together, but they're not necessarily going to go out of their comfort zone and other than date you and potentially
Yeah.
have other, what we call metas, right? The metamorphs, the
Yes.
partners of partners, or like partner's partner, having to deal with whatever that looks and feels like. So which one did you mean? Did you mean like oh, I'm going to jump into the lifestyle now that it's an option for me, or did you mean like, or do you mean both?
I mean both too. Like that's very, very much. I think the people that jump into the jump into the world for themselves first, right? They're just like, oh, I found this and this is me. So here I go. I think a lot of times it goes into that infatuation of multiple relationships.
Hmm.
Um, and I say relationships because I don't think the idea of knowing how to have multiple partnerships um, is made aware yet. I think it's kind of into that um, new relationship thought process, I guess,
Hmm.
where everything is, it's like going into a candy store and your parents tell you you can have all the candy. So you want to have all the candy
And it is sweet.
and it's sweet and it's great. And then all of a sudden you get a tummy ache and then it's like that stop pause when you get that tummy ache. You're like, well, now what? What do I do now?
Yeah.
Um, so jumping right in and not knowing if you have a relationship or partnership or having the expectation of having all these partnerships and
Mm.
trying to maintain multiple of them and then like the thought process of like, well, how do I live with multiple people?
Hmm.
Can this happen? Is this real? And then how do you navigate that and the different communications? um, and
Yeah.
on the other part of it, like someone who actively um, identifies as maybe monogamous starts dating someone who is polyamorous,
Hmm.
um, and have this thought process still of that escalator of life to this partnership.
Hmm.
And then it comes to the point of, well, is that allowed? Can I have this with this
Hmm.
person? And so the person that is poly then has to decide, like, can I have multiple partnerships? And what does that look like for me? Um, is that sharing finances with this person? Um, is that, maybe I can have multiple homes and I have children in both places? Um, Bringing this person into the home
Hmm.
and all of that and trying to navigate it, which can be so overwhelming.
You know what's coming to mind as you're talking? Like, Can I jump in, or do you have?
Yeah,
Do you
no,
want
go
to?
ahead.
Yeah.
You can jump in.
So what's this is reminding me of, and it's funny. This is what started. Believe it or not, this was what started our not non-monogamous life. Was we actually watched that freaking show Sister Wives, and it's got problems, right? And there's that, and apparently, this as the season's gone on, things are sort of rough. I don't follow the show anymore, but when we were first thinking about this, we had been watching the show, and what you were just talking about reminds me about, like, in polygamy, which is different than polyamory.
Yeah.
It's very different. Polygamy implies partnership right
Yeah.
out of the gate. So if you're a polygamist, you are having multiple
Okay.
partnerships
Yeah.
with hopefully that romantic tie too, right? You get that relationship
Mhm.
side of it as well, because why would you want to be just a partner of somebody? You could just start a business and be a partner with them. No, this is more about, like, okay, so I find somebody, I'm connecting with them. Okay, let's get married, because I guess that's how it works when you're a polygamist Mormon or whatever religion that might support that. um, to each his own. I don't have a problem if that's what you're legally allowed to do, or you're legally allowed to figure out if you have one legal marriage and then a bunch of you know church marriages or whatever, and they're not registered. That's fine. Whatever. I don't care if that's what you want. But that relationship structure really puts partnership front and center. So I guess Sammy's little
The
guy,
babies will come in.
the
Yes.
baby, yes, yeah. So um, anyway, so I think that's interesting. So I think for most, sort of circling back, for most people, they start off with the relationship in mind, and
Yes.
um, then they go to then they start looking at. I think organically, a lot of those partnership things sort of come about.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't. They don't. Um, we just sort of think that this is how you evolve. I think what's interesting with polyamorous relationships, whether or not they're with another polyamorous person, though I really think though that's probably, well, I don't know, maybe it's a little easier because everybody has the understanding of what that's all about. Um, but I think sometimes we might have our old programming about what a relationship should look like, and sometimes we get more enmeshed. I mean that in a positive way. We get more integrated. We connect more. We start making more. Um, Maybe we start making more critical decisions together. Or hey,
Oh,
there's some
yeah.
people that they have triads. Like we're just talking about individuals getting together, but we haven't even talked about um, what I don't want to speak for triads. I've never been in one, but I could
Well,
imagine.
you can say
It,
triad, yeah, because it's very much all three. You can have a partnership that is a
mhm,
triad or a quad, and it's all about the people in that dynamic and that partnership dynamic. They may all live in the same roof. One person may be the stay at home where they are doing the chores, they are raising the children or watching the children while the others are at work, or
mhm,
everyone has a job and it's a contributing to a factor of splitting all the finances, and then making those big decisions together. So you very much, it doesn't have to be just a parallel two people. It can be three people, four people, or as many, I guess, as you
mhm.
desire in your,
Yeah.
you know,
I guess
that.
yeah, I guess most of our conversation has been sort of around parallel, but yeah, like I think that really makes for a compelling reason when you have more people
Mhm.
get involved in either a triad or a V, where people start cohabiting and you all sort of come to this sort of group agreement about how they want that partnership to work, and everybody gets something out of it. I think maybe that's one thing that is, I think, important to factor in, is that a partnership involves an exchange of of resources of some level, or the ability to provide resources when needed. And I don't necessarily mean money, but it could mean time, or it could be like that person that is the medical power of attorney if somebody ends up in the hospital, or um,
Sure.
that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Um, those sorts of things can they come up, and we have to figure out how to factor in some of those pieces. I'm sort of losing my train of thought here, and that's okay. I don't have your face to help keep me focused right now. Um, I know I know it's supper time, or snack time.
It is night nap, evening snack time. I guess,
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna I'm gonna try to get these screens working. I don't know
Sure.
how it is. Uh, oh, I'm gonna remove you from. There we go. That's how I do it. Now I'm gonna do it. No, can I do it this way? There we go. That's what I want to do. And then when you're ready to come back on, I'll let you in. I can hear you though, right? Oh no, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to
And
remove you in order to make you not priority. Oh my goodness. See, this is what happens when you don't know what the hell you're doing.
hey, we're
Anyway,
trying. It's all good. All that we can
there's
do.
this really interesting. So years ago, I figured out I could bring this in as another focal point on our discussion here. I'm gonna find. I have to find something else to speak to. Where is that? Is this the one? Yeah. Okay. So what I'm showing here is a this is something that was developed by I'm going to be reading off of a screen a little bit. So in the 80s, American psychologist Robert Sternberg put this together, and he did some research on a theory of love um, that includes I can't actually draw on this. I don't think I can. So, but if you look at the top of the triangle, if you're not watching this and you're listening to this, I don't know if we're going to be doing audio only, but um, at the top of the triangle, there's intimacy, um, and it's an equilateral triangle, so all sides are sort of equal in its shape. And at the bottom, you have on one other corner, which is passion, and then the other one is commitment. And then you have these sort of blended in between states, and then you have this thing in the middle. So um, when you have um, when you have one or two of these states, then you really sort of, I guess, it's a great way to sort of look at it. I wouldn't ever use this as a way to define how I was going to be involved with somebody, because there's a lot of gray area in relationships, let alone partnerships. But I think it's interesting. But the reason why I brought this in is I think on one side of the triangle, so on the left side of this triangle, where you have liking and infatuation, and in the middle you have romantic love. This is really where I think a lot of the relationship stuff, and then maybe sort of yeah. Once you start adding the commitment component, then you start looking at more partnership type things. But like intimacy and passion, or blending the two, really has, I think, an impact on whether or not you would be able to define your connection with somebody as a relationship or more. Um, so, one article talks about what this infatuation is, and that it's a period when people barely know each other yet feel a mutual attraction. And certainly, I've been there. You've been there too, right?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yes.
yep. And then you have, at the top here, liking, which is the intimacy, and liking is in such relationships you can always be yourself. I'll link to the article and wherever we post this. I think we're going to put this on YouTube, but I'll put the links to these articles that we talk about, so that way you can read in more detail. Um, then you have commitment, which is the other sort of third factor. and they call that empty love, which I think I'm like, okay. So couples experiencing this type of love have only commitment without intimacy and passion. Well, that's obvious. Okay. Um, what do they say here? They say sometimes this type of relationship appears after a big, fervent love, and sometimes it's vice versa. People who experience empty love can change, which adds passion to their feelings. Okay, I guess. Now, the commitment and passion thing is fatuous love, and it's on the bottom of the triangle here. And this type of love includes commitment and passion and is familiar to many couples. And I think that's, I think I've had that a lot when I decide you're not just, how do you want to say it? You're not just, uh, you are not just a sort of a fling, or you're not somebody who should matter. I have a less love. I have a lower level of um, interest, and you're disposable. I think when you say, "Okay, I'm going to stick around because I really like this, and let's keep going," I think that's what you have fatuous love. Um, I don't know. Where have you sat in that? Have you gone down that road?
A factious
That-
love.
yeah, where you have the
Um,
commitment and the passion, not necessarily the the intimacy piece yet.
yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. So romantic love, conversely, is people in such couples are attracted to each other and feel comfortable next to one another, but they're not ready to make serious commitments. So that was with me in that one woman I dated for about 8 months. It was romantic love, um, and yeah, the commitment. I think she was ready to make a commitment, or wanted to get into that space of making a commitment, but not with me because she knew it could only go so far. So that's the part that sucks, I think.
well, I've actually been in some romantic love. I guess we're talking about passion and intimacy, where we decided not to make the commitment, but we still had that relationship and really enjoyed it. And we enjoyed not having to make a, a solid commitment, as far as into like a partnership type of thing, right?
Mhm.
Where we could just kind of be and we can have that lustful like feeling. And when we were spending time with each other, we spent time with each other. Um, that person led a solo polyamorous lifestyle. So their choices of relationships were just kind of individual and not really much agreements or commitments that
Mhm.
were placed on having shared finances or a shared goal or for future. So it was more of passion and intimacy for what it is, for how it is, and how it shall be.
So is it definitely more of the romantic love side? So
Yeah.
would you say that because I've never been solo poly, because I've always been in a relationship since I've started this journey. Um, but would you say that a solo poly tends to lead itself more to the romantic love, um, and I don't want to pigeonhole anybody into like, because of like there's that commitment piece, and some people, I guess there's probably a lot of people who are solo poly that will commit, but won't necessarily do all of the escalator things in a partnership, like live together.
Sure. Well, I guess that brings up the fact that I do think that and you can have a relationship and commit to that relationship for the
Mhm.
structure that it is and know that you're not going to have like the partnership of having these common goals where you're intertwined with each other. So it's still like almost having independence life, but a commitment to be with each other. The commitment is, I value this romantic intimacy that we're having and I really enjoy it and I want to stay in this structure.
Right. Right. Um, Interestingly, that kind of talks a little bit about this. That sort of the sixth kind of relationship or love is the companionate, where you have
Mhm.
the relationships are much stronger than usual friendships. So you have people that you stick with for forever. You may not have much in the way of passion, but you're certainly willing to hold on to that person, and you have that level of intimacy where you still like that person, you still talk with them, you still explore thoughts and feelings and things like that. um, that's sort of how I see it. I can't say I can say I can say safely that um, my relationship with my wife has ebbed and flowed between the last relationships. Well, it started off in the romantic love side, and it has moved itself between companionate and consummate. Over the years, it sort of goes back and forth. So, and consummate love involves some level of passion, some level of intimacy, and some level of commitment. I think our commitment's pretty solid. We've had a lot of ups and downs, um, and then when it matters, we can really talk to each other, and we still consider each other friends, which is good. And we're still
Cool.
passionate, and we still turn each other on, and that's a good thing. And we don't, the partnership stuff in our life, all this is why I mentioned this before. The partnership stuff in our life tends to overshadow and take over the amount of time available. It's like the partner, it's interesting because maybe the partnership is almost like another relationship, but it's another way you're connecting with that same person, but that thing can overpower. It's like, if it's kind of in the same vein that if you have somebody you're connected with and they have a serious medical condition, and sometimes the medical condition is like a third person in your relationship, right? So you always
Mhm.
have to consider and factor that in. Same thing with the partnership. You kind of have to factor in what are those things, children or finances or things like that. I know that when you have these really big, difficult, or challenging, or resource intensive partnership things, they really do um, take away from some of that romance side of things. I don't know. I like this in my experience anyway, but doesn't mean you can't get back to it. You just have to try.
I think maybe that is part of partnership, like, you go through these very high um, up feelings, right, in that partnership. And then you do have those downs, the trials. But it's that will that you still continue to do to make that partnership work in that time structure. So it might be, okay, we're just not going to have any sexual intimacy at this time. We just, there's so much going on in our partnership, in our lives that we intertwined with on a serious committed level that it's off the table. But I'm still going to have a relationship with another person, and in that relationship, that is being fulfilled in that sexual intimacy. But then, let's say 6 months later, in your partnership, then the sexual intimacy starts to come back up again. So you
Right.
kind of go up and down those hills, but you still made that commitment to each other or each other's.
So that's when you start moving back to that consummate love thing,
Yeah.
which is the seventh, and the center dot of it. It's when all three factors tend to combine. So from the article here. they say, of course, this love consists of all three components: passion, emotional intimacy, and
Mhm.
commitment. Of course, their levels aren't always equal, but it's important to note that they're all here. You can rarely see this type of relationship, yet if people manage to build them, they truly love each other. Such
Mhm.
couples will most likely be able to live a long life together, enjoy their marriage. So
Mhm.
I'm not sure. Well, it's interesting because this is an interpretation of the research, and there's a whole book. And actually, when my friend who was into psychology mentioned it to me, it was in her textbook. I went and actually ordered a used copy of the book, and so the book is pretty. It's pretty in depth on each one of these things and how you look at it and whatever. Um, but I think to say that consummate love is you truly love each other. I guess that if you define true love as consummate love, then yeah. But I think there's I don't know if I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think this goes into a completely different topic, and I don't necessarily want to talk about it today in any depth, but I think love is been misused, and we've certainly redefined what love is over the last century.
Yeah.
We look at it one way now when it was really different before. So um, I think love today. This is just my opinion. You can hate me for it. I think love today. Um, they look at love as a. It's like, what am I going to get? Versus love as a what it meant, I think, in the past is, what am I going to give? So maybe you can, I think you can be, you can love somebody and sort of hit that true love. I think if you're following the tenets of what am I going to give? That's just my personal opinion. I think if you look at it, it's like, how can I give to the person in my life, um, and you sort of carry this with you, then I'm not saying you do this because you should be like a doormat and just keep giving, giving, giving. No, what I mean is um, that if you stop looking at it from a self inward looking point of view. I was going to say selfish, but it's not necessarily selfish, but it's sort of like inward looking. I need to feel this rather than I need to give. um, I think you can have a very fulfilling, loving relationship without necessarily having one of these things in any sort of a major way. Like, you can have the intimate commitment and still be loving to each other. Um,
I agree.
so, how's things over there with the little guy?
He is being a little rambunctious, but he is good.
Good.
Uh
Good.
oh. He just stuck something in his mouth that he should not.
Uh oh. Well, and there goes Sam again. Um, yeah, yeah. So yeah, so that's sort of. I'm gonna pull this slide off. I'm done looking at this. It's I'm getting sick and tired of looking at it. But this sort of there's Sam. Hi,
Hi.
hi. So let's see. I liked it when you were over on this side. You're not covered up by the logo. Um, so this brings us to sort of maybe our. I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about that those those seven those ways to look at the different types of love, or anything like that, or do we
Um,
want to talk
Not at the moment
about
because I want to do some more research on it because I actually find that there could be a lot more talk on it.
Yeah,
I
absolutely,
mean,
absolutely.
going into more detail or diving deep into it.
Yes, well, we could dive. There's lots to dive in. We've done it before. We could do it again. So
Yeah.
one thing I know we were looking at is there anything else you wanted to add about your own personal experience with relationship and partnerships, or have you sort of covered the bases
Um,
that you wanted to share?
I think that it can be hard watching your partnership have other relationships. Um,
Hmm. Yeah.
from my
Oh,
personal
absolutely.
experience, before I actually really thought about this topic, before you shared that article, it it really actually up until just probably a couple weeks ago, um, it really made me feel less than having a partnership with someone and watching them have this relationship that was newer, that there was a lot of like infatuation, a lot of new, that, a common term is that new relationship energy, right?
Hmm. Yeah, the
So,
NRE.
yeah, the relationship. So here I have a partnership. There's actual real life struggle because life,
Yeah.
baby.
Yep.
And I get to see my partner all happy and me. Sometimes there's happy, but then sometimes there's sad, and then sometimes there's angry. So all of the emotions come out, right? And we don't really have those emotions when we're in partnerships, because
Right.
it's very real. Like the glitter is all off. Um,
Yeah.
but really defining the separation between relationship and partnership has really helped me be able to be like, oh wait, there is value in a partnership,
Hmm.
as far as, just because it's not the glitz and glamour, the new and things, making commitments with each other is a different type of love too. It's still a very strong love.
Hmm. Hmm.
My mind was trying to tell me that um, that infatuation state of a relationship meant like love, like that was what love was. You were always supposed to be this happy and cheery and have all the great sex in the whole wide world if that's what you wanted to have. Like,
Hmm.
go out on all the dates, buy the flowers, give gifts to each other, have all of the love languages met and needed, and still learning each other. But in that partnership, I've already learned my partner
Hmm.
in ways. And now there's no need for those little secrets. Not really secrets, but you can like get naked and be like, yeah, today I'm just like, there's little flab hanging out here. It's okay. You know, you're not gonna hide it. You're not gonna put a tummy tucker on. You're not gonna like, wear your slim fitting pants.
You can be more relaxed, and you can be
Yeah.
it, you become more yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Absolutely.
intimacy. So you were saying some things that reminded me of my own sort of struggles with understanding how to um, when you're in a partnership and you're and you have a relationship with that partner and that partner finds somebody new, the relationship side, or no, actually, well, the relationship side can struggle if you're that kind of person, in one way, shape, or form. Maybe somebody's jealous, or you have an attachment problem, or all sorts of a fear of abandonment, whatever. Um, but what's also really what really resonates with me, because I've seen it and I've had to um, actively work with my partner to make sure that the partnership doesn't suffer
Yes.
when things are changing in the relationship dynamic. So if there's somebody new coming along, um, okay, we still need to share childcare. We still need to make sure that there's food on the table, and or we have to do chores around the house or things like that, or who's going to manage what, sort of like, take the kids swimming or this or that or whatever. So my life is very kid focused, so a lot of my experience will certainly speak to that. So yeah, when somebody new and from the relationship side comes in, when it's with another partner, that can really impact that partnership side of things. So,
Absolutely. I also think, though, on the flip side too, it can affect the relationship type thing too.
hmm hmm
You know, where maybe this person that you're in a relationship with, maybe they're the ones that have the jealousy and the, anxious attachment styles or avoidance styles, so that they see that you have this solid commitment with someone and they want that, or they don't know, maybe they want that, or they want to be equal, right? They want the equality.
mm,
But
oh, yes.
in in the end, it's not always about being equal.
Oh, we have a glitch in the audio.
Being equal, being
You're gonna
equal
have to repeat
doesn't
that.
denote um, how much you love for someone, right?
That's
Like,
true, and that's very common
mhm,
misconception is like because you have somebody else. This comes up a lot in those monopoly groups on Facebook or Reddit or whatever. It's like,
yeah,
but they don't love me as much anymore because they're having another relationship. So yeah, the fear of losing some of that. Um,
or the new relationship, like, um, you don't love me as much as you love
mm,
your partner, your nesting partner, your home partner. Like, I need to be treated the way that they're being treated. When actuality, it's a little hard because when you have a relationship with someone, you're not sharing a lot of these goals, at least not yet, right?
mhm,
You haven't worked into that partnership. It could go down that road. It may not go down that road, but it doesn't mean that that relationship is any less than. It just means this partnership has these things that need to be maintained,
mhm,
that you had made that person or to live up. But it could mean that that relationship eventually could get to that state when you get to know this person on
mhm.
those deepened levels, and you make agreements together, which then could change up all the dynamics everywhere. But then it's talking and communicating and working all of that out.
Yeah, yeah. So that's interesting because it sort of leads into our other topic, and the notion of like prioritizing things and how people tend to prioritize their relationships and partnerships. And there's a it's a loaded word because a lot of people tend to bristle at it. Um, and they people talk about hierarchies. Now, I'm not a big fan of emotional hierarchies um, where at least in my mind, it's defined as um, there's something near the top, and then there's other things that are less important as they go down. Um, I think for me, and I'm not sure where you sit, Sammy, but I think I think I know where you sit. But emotional hierarchies are real big trouble. Um, I think every relationship has its own merits, and the relationship um, lives and breathes based off of the amount that's invested between the two people. So, um, one positive thing of feedback that I've received from previous relationships is that um, that person's never felt like they were any less than uh, that I loved them any less. Um, That doesn't mean relationships can't recalibrate though, and things can change over time. But in general, though, um, if you, I think, at least from a healthy perspective, at least if you focus on ensuring that everybody gets the time that they need if you can afford it. And then when you do have the time, and you afford the time because time is a limited resource, it's like one of the few limited resources in poly. Love is infinite, time is not. Um, but I think if when you spend time with somebody, you focus on them, they will understand and feel like they matter and they're important. Um, and you don't have to shut the world out, but at the same time, you you give that person your attention when you're with them. So if I'm with my wife, I'm giving her my attention when we're not doing partnership things. So that way our relationship doesn't suffer, or she's giving me attention. So our relationship flourishes. And then the same thing goes with other partners and things. Um, wow, I'm really having to babble here. And then, yes, I know, Sam, you're just listening. And I know you're dealing with baby. But then there's that. Then there's the notion of hierarchy, where there are some people like I guess a really clear example of relationship hierarchies is unicorns and unicorn hunters. And I know that's such an ugly topic for some people, and certainly I've never been involved with any of that myself. But that ends up having that can there are like what they call it couples privilege. So the couple becomes has a privilege over the new person that is or the third person that's
Mhm.
involved, and it's not a triad. That other person, that unicorn, and I think they call it unicorns because that's the mythical creature that doesn't exist. uh, so so I know somebody that had been a unicorn, and it ended badly for them, and I felt really bad for them because the the hierarchy or the privilege that the couple expressed really silenced that other person's voice. So I think there are relationships that have emotional hierarchies, and I think even too if you're doing parallel poly or you're just a solo poly and you have a bunch of different partners, and some people play favorites, and they might do that. But
Well, I want to cut in here with
yeah,
that
sure,
too,
please
real
go
quick.
ahead. Go ahead.
Any relationship that
Oh,
you choose not to
you're
be in
breaking
is
up a little
okay.
bit. Could you say that again?
Okay. Any relationship style that you want to be in is okay. The difference is when you invoke on a relationship or even a partnership that that is very clearly defined, so that everyone entering into that relationship or partnership knows the expectations of what that means.
Hmm.
And so if you do practice solo poly, the people that you are engaging with know that you practice solo poly. They know your definition and they know where the boundaries are. Or if a couple is seeking a third, that third knows their placement. And that third can also have their own voice, right? I mean, because there's definitely triads that are not based on a unicorn hunting.
Oh,
But
absolutely. Not all
yeah,
triads are unicorn hunting
yeah.
situation.
But I have known a friend of mine who loved being a unicorn and said that she was okay with this hierarchy that this couple had
Hmm.
because she liked feeling like their little toy is what she would say.
Yeah, so I guess yeah, that make I could see that. I could see it. And that's also, I guess, in some level, especially I guess when you start exploring more power dynamics
Hmm.
in relationships, because I know that the uh, I don't know how to sort of speak of it at a higher level. Is it the kink community, or is it the BDSM community, or are they really different things? But I know that tends to cross over, and then the power dynamics can exist in some of uh, those
Absolutely.
relationships. So, and it's nice to be able to. I think for some people to, I don't know if that blends over into the notion of hierarchy and people taking higher priority than others, but possibly I could see that possibly being something that is satisfying for some people, where they don't
I
have to
mean,
like. What's that?
most definitely. I mean, I know that there are power exchange relationships where you have a dominant and you have a submissive, but they are poly.
Hmm.
However, they have set rules or agreements made in their relationships. Um, so it's informing new relationships or partnerships
Hmm.
of what is the expectations, what is
Right.
the standard, what is the baseline to make this. There what are the hard limits to these
Yeah.
relationships?
Interesting, because I think about people I've either read about or I've talked to um, over the years, and they talk about like being collared. This is definitely getting into an area that I know probably way less to speak. I know less about it. I can't really. I shouldn't be speaking with any amount of authority, but at the same time, I could see the if there's somebody who likes to be a dominant and the other person like to be submissive, and they have this notion of collaring, that immediately sets a hierarchy in place because it's not like you can get. Well, from what I understand, it's not like you can get collared twice easily. It's not usually something that's done, but I could be wrong. I'm totally willing to be wrong on that, and there's probably people out there that are
I
collared.
would say that you are wrong.
Okay. Thank you.
I would say that it may not be as common,
Yeah.
but in a polystructural thing, it I have heard and have seen it.
Hmm.
Um, and it goes into personal beliefs. Again, it's based on the structure of what do you personally believe in, and how do you find companionship in other people that matches you? How can you find that
Hmm.
parallel thinking into structures um, to
Right.
form?
I couldn't imagine. I can't wrap my head around how somebody could have two DOMs easily. Like which one takes priority? Like really, that's in my mind. It's like that's the first question. That's the naive question I ask though. So
Well, I
who gets
mean,
to say you're coming over tonight, and the other person says you're coming over tonight, and then who who takes priority? I know it's such a naive and such a goofy way to talk about it, but I don't know. Well, I don't know. What do you think?
um, I think that this is a topic for another day because
Probably.
I think that it could last like 5 hours. So,
Yeah, okay. I'm okay with segueing away from that. I think what
yeah.
I wanted to do was what I did want to do is talk about when you have partnerships and we talk about hierarchies. I know I've used this term before, and I think it actually really did help some people understand that. I said I don't have a hierarchy when it comes to my heart and love, and I love people for who they are, and they love me, I guess, and our relationship is what it is. It's unique, and one is not dependent on the other. Um, but I have a functional hierarchy where I have to function in my partnership, and um, and because of that, there are things, especially when it comes to children, because children can't get them their need. You have to meet their needs. So that first of all, completely like for most people, I would hope as parents they would see that rings true, that
Mhm.
children can't meet their own needs. You have to meet their needs, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, or intellectual. You have to do those things over the course of their lifetime until they leave the house. Um, so they take precedence. They even take precedence over I guess in a way they take precedence or priority over my relationship with my wife at some level, because um, if one of our kids lands in the hospital, which has happened, everything, all resources are put to the table to make sure that the child is taken care of, and that they're getting the adequate care that they need, and everything else is happening. So those relationship things sort of they have to sidestep in order to make the the more functional aspects of your partnership
Yeah. Yeah.
a center stage. So
I definitely
um,
agree. But I am going to have to cut off it here.
mhm. So I guess
Um,
we could I guess we could sign off now, and and say thank you to everybody that's decided to hang out with us for over a bit over an hour.
Yeah, thank you for dealing with us in our first chat of
Yeah,
like, let's record this thing and just do the thing, and like maybe it will be a thing, or I don't know, let's just do it.
yeah, and I think it went pretty well. I'm sure
Me too.
I'll have to do a tiny bit of editing. It won't be too bad, but we should have a pretty good first cut of something. So yeah, again, appreciate everybody's involvement, and thank you, Sammy, for talking with me as we always do, and
Well, thank
taking
you
time out of
for
your.
me. Thank you for taking time out of your day and, just having these talks. They're so good. I've always got so much value about
Mhm.
just talking about random things and all of that. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, well, let's sign off now. Have a good
Right.
evening, and adios, and we'll see you guys all in the next chat, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.